Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to speak about Bill C-29, the Budget Implementation Act of 2016, number 2. I'd like to begin by thanking my colleague, the honourable member from Louis Saint Laurent, for leading Canada's official opposition on the finance portfolio. I'd also like to take time to thank my colleagues who have spoken about this important topic for their informative speeches on this important bill that, what we think on this side of the House, will negatively affect Canadians from coast to coast to coast. This bill, which I will expand on further during my speech, will continue the unsustainable and fiscally irresponsible spending of this Liberal government. This bill, as we know, will ruin Canada's chances of returning to a balanced budget in the foreseeable future, despite the Liberals promising that during the election. And we know this because much of this spending, this new spending, is structural, which means locked in and permanent. Mr. Speaker, as everyday Canadians know, you cannot live outside your means. And that's exactly what this government is doing. They're living on their credit card for the foreseeable future. At some point, Speaker, the bill needs to be paid. And how is this government going to pay it? Which programs are they going to cut? What taxes are they going to raise? I'd like to echo a statement from my honourable colleague, the member from Louis Saint Laurent, who said, "I am pleased and honoured, but also humbled, to speak on behalf of all my official opposition colleagues and on behalf of all Canadians who were literally duped by the Liberal Party a year ago." Speaker, the Liberals promised to help middle-income Canadians, and as we've seen, their plan unfortunately has not worked. I've had the pleasure of meeting and speaking with people all across my riding, and I continue to look forward to meeting and speaking with many more. And to this day, the majority of people I've spoken with have said their highest priority is the economy, specifically jobs. Unfortunately, I have to limit myself because I only have 10 minutes here, but I'd like to continue to go on about the issues I have with this budget and the direction this government is taking. Speaker, take a look at where we were about a year ago. Under the previous Conservative government, we embarked on a plan of targeted spending, lowering taxes in all areas, and that ensured growth, long-term growth, and prosperity for individual Canadians. As a result of this, what Canadians had was the lowest tax burden in over 50 years. It also led to a $2.9 billion surplus, a surplus that, Speaker, the Liberals have not only spent, but now we have a deficit of about $30 billion. And we also recently found out that the Liberals are borrowing an extra $32 billion over the next 5 years, with no reason to believe we will get better results. Add on the increase to the CPP and the carbon tax, and Speaker, you can see why Canadians are concerned. But Speaker, this is not just about a simple tax increase and deficit spending. This is about the fundamental Liberal belief in a high tax, high spending agenda, and that the government should decide how to spend your money rather than Canadians themselves. I cannot stress enough, Speaker, the different view that I have compared to my colleagues across the floor. Unlike my colleagues on that other side, I believe the best way to encourage job creation and growth is to lower taxes and give Canadians the opportunity to spend their money as they see fit. Because, Speaker, the more options you give Canadians, the more choices they will make based on their individual situations. And that is crucial. And 1 year now, Speaker, where are we now? The Bank of Canada, the Parliamentary Budget Officer, the International Monetary Fund, the OECD confirmed that the Liberal government's economic forecast must be downgraded. It is clear that the high-tax, high-spending agenda is not working. We have also learned that over the past year, the Liberal government has yet to create one single full-time job. Not one, Speaker. And instead of working to create these favorable conditions to create jobs, they've decided to raise taxes on Canadians and businesses, knowing that this will have a detrimental effect on the economy. Speaker, 350,000 manufacturing jobs lost over the last decade in Ontario alone because of failing Liberal promises and policies. Ontario, Speaker, used to be the economic engine of Canada. Now it's a shell of its former self. The most indebted sub-sovereign nation in the world, double the debt of California, a third of the population. Speaker, that's not the path we want to go down here in Canada, but it's happening. As we know, Speaker, many families across the country are getting by. These people are living paycheck to paycheck. They need help now. They need jobs now. They need support, not new taxes, Speaker. This government should be giving Canadians the choice on how to spend their own money. The money being taken from Canadians, and the Liberals could be using it for letting people help pay their rent, their groceries, school field trips, down payment on a house, a family vacation, you name it. How Canadians choose to spend their own money is not the concern of government, and government needs to get out of the pockets of Canadians. Speaker, members opposite may argue that while they're increasing spending to help the families and children of middle-class income Canadians, the Liberal plan is actually going to result in higher costs right across the board, wiping out, and then some, their so-called tax cuts. Thanks to their carbon tax, their CPP contributions, and Canadians are struggling to see how they are going to prosper, Speaker. Look at what the Canadian Federation of Independent Business says. They're very, very worried about this new tax hike. Massive amounts of businesses say they're going to freeze any potential pay raises. They're going to freeze any potential hiring. What does that do, Speaker? How are we going to give people a chance to get a job, put a down payment on a house, and live the Canadian dream? You can't do that. What about our youth? We hear all day about members opposite saying how they want to promote the youth, but if there are no jobs for them, how are they going to have a future? If they can't start a business because Canada is it's not even a place that you'd even think about doing business because it's not competitive, how is that going to make them want to stay here and able to actually make a future for themselves, make a home base, maybe start a family? But I'm sure that all sides of the House, Speaker, will agree that supporting children is what we all agree on. We had our own universal child care benefit, which I was very supportive of. But C-29 confirms that the government will now index this child benefit to inflation beginning in January of 2020, something they forgot to do. The Parliamentary Budget Officer has now estimated that indexing and enriching the CCB will cost $42.5 billion over the next 5 years, an expense the government hasn't budgeted for. Where's the government planning on finding this extra $42 billion? Again, are they raise taxes? What programs are they cutting? Canadian families can't afford another tax hike. Businesses cannot afford another tax hike. We keep squeezing them and squeezing them more. Now, Speaker, this bill is repealing the employment insurance reforms our previous Conservative government introduced in 2013, measures that were designed to help unemployed Canadians get back to work. Our changes were designed to make EI more efficient, to focus on job creation, Speaker. Now, eliminating incentives for people to work and to support unemployed Canadians by helping match workers and jobs. We believe that employment insurance is a temporary support that helps to overcome a difficult situation and not a tool to be used permanently. The best cure for unemployment remains job creation. But as I mentioned previously, this bill is just a small piece of the Liberal agenda and shows how fiscally responsible this government is. And to get a broader understanding of the Liberal economic plan, you can also look at the changes to the CPP and now the carbon tax. The CPP tax hike will end up costing some households up to $2,200 more per year. And of course, that's on the high end, but still, it is a difference. It will take money from the paychecks of hard-working Canadians and put thousands of jobs at risk and do absolutely nothing to help the seniors that need the help right now. Now, Speaker, the new carbon tax promised by the Liberal government is going to be a massive new tax on consumers, the equivalent to 11.5 cents per litre of gasoline, imposing a new punishing tax while holding back approval on job-creating pipeline projects. And it shows how misplaced these priorities are, Speaker. This Liberal plan, Speaker, is very concerning. Canadians know that you can't spend your way into prosperity because if that were the case, Speaker, Ontario would be the economic engine of Canada. It is clearly not. And there is a reason for that, Speaker, because Liberal policies with tax and spend do not work. When you take more money out of people's pockets, they have less to spend on the priorities that benefit their own. The previous government had a record, Speaker, of creating jobs during the worst economic downturn since the Great Recession. Canada had the best job creation and economic growth among the G7. We've reduced taxes to their lowest point in 50 years, typically saving the family of four about $7,000 per year. And we had targeted temporary spending on stimulus. When the economy crashed, We put money into infrastructure. Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock saw since 2008 over $200 million in direct infrastructure spending. And that created libraries, arenas, refurbished roads and bridges. We're very proud of that record. But as the deficit continues to grow, we see no signs of slowing down on that Liberal spending. And yet, as we said before, not one single job has been created. But Madam Speaker, I see that you've changed. I look forward to the questions from my honourable colleagues. Thank you.
Questions and comments? Questions and commentaires. L'honorable député de Laurentides-Labelle.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. To my friend and colleague from Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, he may have finally convinced the member for Lanark-Frontenac-Kingston, but for me, taxes aren't about spending people's money. They're about sharing common costs. It is not about being taxpayers, but about being citizenry. Elections are about deciding our priorities in broad strokes on what those common costs are. We exist as a legislative body to decide on those finer details, thus this budget. So does my friend and colleague believe, as he has hinted, that tax cuts are the only possible way to grow the economy? And if so, if we eliminated taxes altogether, would we then, as a country, become infinitely prosperous? It is simple calculus, according to his pitch. In a limit formula, according to conservatives, as taxes approaches zero, prosperity is infinite. Does he really believe in trickle-down economics? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I do appreciate the question from my friend across the way, and I do appreciate his work on the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. I do appreciate the back and forth we have going on. I could also ask if raising taxes to 100% would actually cause prosperity, because that seems to be what's going on. But Speaker, I think what you need to do is reasonable taxes. And keep taxes lower. Stop gouging our job creators, our wealth creators in our communities. Speaker, as I've said many times, when you put the people that put the help wanted sign in the window out of business and they go away, they're not coming back. And what is left? Blight, Madam Speaker. So how do you have a successful economy, putting people to work, creating wealth, paying taxes, if the businesses are not there? And Speaker, we continue this debate, and we've talked about what the Canadian Federation of Independent Business continues to say, and they are saying these tax increases are worrisome to Canadian small businesses from coast to coast to coast.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires. The honourable parliamentary secretary to the government house leader.
Yeah, Madam Speaker, let me maybe allow for a bit of an answer to the statement. You know, by the government of Canada giving hundreds of millions of dollars in tax relief for Canada's middle class, that means there's going to be that much more disposable income. The healthier the middle class is of Canada, the healthier our economy will be. In other words, this budget is putting money in the pockets of Canada's middle class and those aspiring to become a part of it. Now, with that disposable money increase, they will be out buying things, consuming products. In other words, those small businesses that are looking for the help wanted signs that the member is referring to are going to be receiving more customers. And if you ask me and you ask my constituents, the small businesses in my community, what they want first and foremost is more customers. And this budget is delivering more customers to our small businesses. Would the member not agree that small businesses in Canada want more customers?
The honourable member for Halliburton, Kawartha Lakes, Brock.
Well, under their tax plan, Madam Speaker, I'm not sure there's many businesses still left as they keep going. But, Madam Speaker, in my riding, I think the member from Winnipeg North riding, the average income is not extremely high. So anyone making less than $45,000 gets absolutely zero from their tax plan. And we in Halliburton County, I'll say there are two organizations that have been set up to actually provide assistance to those who can't pay their heating bills because hydro is way too expensive because the government keeps reaching into their pockets and taking more and more money. So we have heat banks trying to give these people the ability to stay warm during the winter. And their income tax cuts are giving those under $44,000 absolutely zero. The ones that benefit the most make anywhere from about $140,000 to $200,000. That's not helping the middle class, Speaker.